Okay, so somehow they let me back for another series of the show. Yeah, this is episode 96 overall. I was hoping to have the big, transition to a new thing. Hi, Awkward GM. Now you can hear me. Hell yeah. And thank you for celebrating the affiliate anniversary for the channel. I accidentally clicked the wrong button and got rid of that message instead of celebrating it. So I'm like the worst person here of all time. But yes, I wanted to do the big channel overlay refresh and stuff for episode 100. But I just couldn't stretch out the Trinity Continuum adventure material for another 4 episodes. So, here we are. It's a new overlay. It looks much better than the last one. It turns out actually having, a font selection and thinking things through rather than throwing something together in a hurry makes something quite nice. Merci, Alain. But yeah, this is my overlay for the show going forwards. Subject to change, obviously. Slightly different disclaimer this time around, however. You'll probably pick up on the difference. Friendly reminder, I do not speak for Onyx Path, nor is this project official material. All views and opinions expressed are my own, and this material will be available to buy eventually. Here's the new stuff. Via Onyx Path Publishing's forthcoming third-party license for the Storypath Ultra system, subject to their approval. I'm merely a grateful fan of the platform. I am also disabled. I do experience muscle spasms that can lead to an unnatural movement of the head and a worsening of my normal stutter and or slurring of speech. And I do struggle with multiple trains of thought, so I will try to finish one before moving on to the next. I will, as always, endeavour to acknowledge any points raised in chat while I'm talking, but then I'll finish what I'm talking about and then loop back around to it. Yes, so before we get into the show proper, a note on the new stuff and what you can see on the screen. As part of the Storypath Ultra core manual crowdfunding campaign, I believe there was a license, was a stretch goal plan. And that's what this is about. It's not out yet. I do not have any more information than anyone else in the community. So I have extrapolated what I believe is a reasonable third-party license process of you pitch the project, they get back to you for revisions or approval, then you send them an outline of what you plan to include. It's just a bit more detail in the project itself. Same process, they approve or ask for revisions. Then you write the manuscript, send it to them, approval, revisions as necessary, and then release the manuscript. I think this is a pretty reasonable expectation of the process. When the process is finally revealed, I will update the overlay to reflect the new process, but you'll notice there's a little red asterisk by pitch, because that's where we are today. I'll be moving the asterisk along the timeline, as the show goes on. However, something important to note is because this is not out yet, and there is no planned release date for it, or announced release date for it, I should say. The show may go on irregular hiatus just because I obviously once I'm past the pitch. Right now, there's nowhere to send this pitch to. Right, I can't. There's no contact address. There's no contact form. I'm just writing it. The next time I stream will probably be the outline, because if the pitch is fine, but requires some revisions, I can always tweak the outline before the pitch is approved. So I can kind of do those two at the same time. But beyond that, obviously, there's no point starting a project if it's not got approval. So I cannot stress enough, as the overlay says, this entire project is subject to the approvals process. If at any point Onyx Path tell me to stop, I will stop, because it's their channel, and also I don't see the point in writing a game I can't sell, because right now I need to be selling games. So that's the thing. I'm also trying to demonstrate the process for people who may be coming into indie game design for the first time, and I don't want to show you something that you cannot follow or that cannot actually be completed. So that's the plan. The TLDR, if they tell me to stop the program, stop what I'm doing, I absolutely will. If I get approval every at every step of the process, I'll keep writing. This is, unlike my community content, probably going to be something that I also work on off stream. but that just depends entirely on how my own independent projects and freelance contracts are working, or are going, I should say. However, those of you who have been here before, you know by now that at the start of the show, I share the Monday meeting notes and any pertinent information for upcoming like crowdfunding campaigns and things of that nature. So the Monday meeting notes I'm halfway down them because I needed some text to copy. The Lair of the Rat Kings crowdfunding campaign is still ongoing on BackerKit. That's a subterranean realm with psionic rodents and player options for Realms of Pugmire. I contributed some monsters, some of my finest monster design work, even if I do say so myself. And it wasn't all just conversions, some of it is original. Mostly finished converting the last of the monsters from first edition, but I believe, obviously, if at any point Eddie's watching this and wants to correct me, or any of the other development team wants to correct me, I believe now every monster from first edition Pugmire has been converted to Realms of Pugmire. And outside of the core Realms of Pugmire rulebook, I think I did like 95% of them. So that's cool. I like monster design. It's my passion. It's always one of those things I've felt was one of my weakest areas. So the fact that I keep getting hired to do it is nice. Any more pertinent information? There's a Vampire the Requiem official and community content sale on Drive-Thru RPG right now. So that's exciting. The late pledges are closed for the Scarred Lands Player's Guide for Savage Worlds. And the next crowdfunding campaign will be for Jade Storm. Quote, coming up really soon in August, which, hey, it's August, so this month. That's part of the Earthbane cycle, if you didn't know. On the channel, all these times are in Eastern. On the channel this week, me, 9 a.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, Curseborn, Accursed in Boston, 7 p.m. Thursday, Guiding the Path, 4 p.m. And Monday, Trinity Continuum Adventure Air Circus. That also has an exclamation mark at the end of it, at 9 p.m. Again, all those times were in Eastern. And scrolling down to on sale this week, we have Curseborn Tangled Webs, a book of liminalities for Curseborn. Okay, well, the cover image says Tangled, but the inline text says Tattered. A book of liminalities for Curseborn. PDF and print-on-demand version available this Wednesday on Drive-Thru RPG. And last week's release was Alchemicals Forged by the Machine God for Exalted 3rd Edition, PDF and POD versions. And then with regards to the Storypath Ultra system itself, the 1 year of Storypath Ultra Tasty Bits is coming to a close with the announcement of the support cast for a November 2026 release for expanding on bonds and contacts. And I think that was the only SPU update on the... Yes, in that section of the Monday meeting notes. It was fantastic. So, here we are. There's no recap this week because it's the first episode of a new season. Hell yeah, 10 seasons and going strong. I don't know why they keep letting me do this. Or why people watch. But here we are. So, pitch is an intimidating word. If only there were some words out there on the internet about how to pitch something. Well, I have good news for you. So if you go to... I'm going to include this link anyway, because I would expect this is the link where the third-party license stuff goes. But if you go to the onyxpath.com/onyx-path-submission-guidelines, scroll all the way down to the bottom to the Gameline pitch section. There is a link there to a blog post that I believe Eddie Webb wrote a while ago. Yes, December 15th, 2020, on how to pitch games to Onyx Path. Now, obviously, this is how to pitch whole game lines, or like whole games for them to publish. Not necessarily how to pitch, well, not in any way, shape, or form, how to pitch a project that you are writing with the third-party license for the Storypath Ultra system in mind. However, there's always stuff that you can take away from it. However, there is some good stuff you can take away from it. Namely, kind of the breakdown. So we're just going to go through this in order, really, and I'm going to type in my Word document that is already zoomed into 120% and hopefully large enough for people to read on stream. So we start with the hook. I've just called it the elevator pitch because that's what I'm more familiar with. But it's a one-sentence grab of your game or project or whatever. Now, you can probably tell from the name on the overlay of the Christamon, Champions of Pangera. Sometimes I think of it as Heroes of Pangera because I've been going backwards and forwards between Champions and Heroes for the past week. But here we are, Christamon, Champions of Pangera. My pitch is, I mean, anyone who knows me is probably going to be thoroughly unsurprised by this, but it's a Pokemon-style JRPG. JPRG, that's not Pokemon-style JRPG set in a post-climate collapse world that is slowly recovering. Mostly, like when you... So, I guess I haven't actually introduced myself. I got right on into it. So I'm Ryan. My pronouns are they, any. You'll see me a lot on the Honest Path channel during, like... I try to get into as many actual plays and panels during Honest Path Con as I can because, you know, my face is my selling point. It's not. It's really not. But I do publish games. And I'm an independent tabletop designer where I sell and self-publish... Where I sell... Let's try that sentence again. I'm an independent tabletop designer, and I self-publish under the name Moonlit Bard, which is why, for once, Moonlit Bard is beneath my face. But I'm also on Blue Sky and Twitch and most other places as Comrade Bubbles, because that's my just general online persona. It's a lot friendly, it's a lot more approachable than Moonlit Bard, but here we are. Moonlit Bard, I figured, as this is an actual game project that I will be selling, rather than community content that Honest Path will be selling, that I would I do it under my publishing name. So that's why it says Moonlit Bard. A quick note on that, I guess, before I continue, the train of thought I was on, is that the ability to sell through the Storypath Nexus is not being removed. You will be able to sell Storypath Ultra stuff through that, is my understanding. But there are restrictions on that will not be in the license, and vice versa. There'll be things in the license that you can't do, but you can do on the Storypath Nexus. I've chosen the license because this is the easiest way for me to make something, or the only way for me to make something that is creator-owned, rather than, if you put it on the Nexus, Onyx Path technically own some of the rights to it, and then obviously you are restricted to what you can do with it, whereas if it's a creator-owned game that you're just licensing the rules from Onyx Path in this instance, you can sell it wherever you want, you can do whatever you want with it, and this is why I'm expecting there will be multiple stages of approval, because Onyx Path don't want anything out there that will tarnish their brand with negative associations, content, themes, racism, things of that nature. And also, I've done like 7, I think, seasons of the show, 6 or 7 seasons of the show on how to write community content for Onyx Path game lines, and now there is the opportunity to do something new, to demonstrate how you can do something new with their games, and why not do that? But mostly it was the whole like creator-owned and ability to do other things with it that pointed me in this direction, let's say. Back to my original topic, however, because this is going to be a larger thing than most other seasons, than all of the other seasons of the show, which have produced like 20, 30-ish page PDFs. It's got to be something I'm excited about creating. During a short project, if your interest wanes, you still have the end in sight. You know that it'll be done soon enough. Whereas a long project, particularly one that is artificially extended because you're talking through design ideas as you're going, you're going to need something to keep you going, so you're going to need something that really interests you in the project. I myself have never done a big book game. I write zine-style games where they're still like 30 pages, if that. But principles are basically the same. It's just more words. So definitely, if you're going to go this route and do the third-party license, check what the current terms of the license are. Those will change between this recording of this episode and the release of the license. And B, pick something you're interested in writing. I had what I thought was a neat idea for reinforcing game themes using the path system, which led me down the Pokemon style route. Also, I'm a fan of Pokemon. I like video games. I think there's great space within the tabletop sphere to emulate more video game style things. I'm not saying that this will emulate that in any way, shape, or form. This is just, you know, the raw bones of the idea. It'll be built upon as we go. But it's definitely, my idea is definitely trending towards, you know, like Final Fantasy style storytelling and storylines. But here we are. So that's why Pokemon style JRPG vibes, let's say. This is an elevator pitch. It doesn't have to be terribly formal and professional. Set in a post-climate collapse world. It's relevant, folks. It's going to be relevant for a while, and it also means I can do post-apocalyptic stuff. And I just love abandoned building vibes and reclamation by nature of the artificial world in a way. And then slowly recovering, because everything I do, I try to put some aspect of hope in, because these are dark times. I don't know if you've noticed, but hope is the one thing that we have that keeps us going. And I try to nurture hope where I can and tell hopeful stories where possible. So basically every game I write has some aspect of hope in it. There's always the chance of victory against all odds. Nothing is ever finished. I mean, it's established RPG wisdom, really. Like, if you finish it, you can't tell any more stories. But there's always the chance that things will get better, even if it might be difficult. So that's why that sentence is the way it is. That's the elevator pitch. That's the, as the article says, a sentence that tells us in a few seconds what's the biggest selling point of the game. For example, Pugmire's hook was, it's D&D, but you play dogs. And then followed up with a paragraph or two describing why your game is special. Summarize the genre, gameplay mechanics, and basic setting. Be succinct here. You want us to get excited about the idea. If we are, we'll ask for more details later. Now, obviously, again, this article was all about pitching a game line to Onyx Path for them to work on, not pitching a project for them to approve for you to work on. But this is the important thing. If you do all of that stuff now, if you write it out, if you formulate it, it's there for you to refer to in the future. So while you could maybe get away with some of the leaving some of the stuff out for the purposes of just pitching, hey, this is a project I'd like to use your game system for, can I do that? Y/N. You kind of shoot yourself in the foot by not doing the work then. And also, if you're going to be doing what I'm doing, where you write the pitch and then you might work on the outline before you get approval, and then just change the outline in response to any revisions to the pitch that need to be made, to the pitch, you've got material for the outline already. So just, it's worth doing the foundational work before getting onto the rest of it, right? Yeah, so let's head into the body of the thing. You know what? Just for ease, for consistency, if anyone does, I'll include the link to the article in the YouTube description as well, because I could do that because it goes out on my YouTube channel. But I'll break these up in the same produce to the same headers that the blog post uses. So, product. A paragraph or two describing why your game is special. Christamon, Champions of Pangea. If anyone's curious, Pangea plus Terra. Pangea. And I'm just going to use Christamon for that for the rest of the. So I'm not typing out the full thing every time. Is a fantasy game that will use the Storypath Ultra system in a novel way, drawing upon the ideas inherent in the inspirational media of the Pokemon, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh, etc. franchises. Players will create both a player character and their partner crystal monsters, because they're stored in crystals. It's very simple. I'm not shooting for the moon here with this. This is not a high concept game. This is just a fan service game. We'll create both a player character and their partner Christamon. Drawing upon the ideas around power of cooperation. The PC type will determine the character's major path, although the paths will be hard-coded. You know what, let's just ignore that for now. I need to double check exactly how that's worded in the rulebook, the manual. PC type will determine the character's major path, while the Christamon's two elemental typings will affect the character's minor paths, as the full character sheet will represent both PC and Christamon working in tandem. Working together, let's say. So yeah, this was just something that I was thinking about. Came to me just randomly. It's like, there's nothing saying that all three of your paths have to come from you. Like, I did briefly consider a fantasy game where you inherit a magical weapon, and the magical weapon is one of your paths. So if you ever lose it, like, that path changes if you find another one, or you just don't have access to that path. And its benefits, you know, the attribute dots, the skill dots, edges, tropes, tricks, whatever you want to call them, until you find the weapon again. But you know, and I do think the idea has legs. The trouble is that Onyx Path are already publishing like 4 fantasy RPGs in the kind of, I mean, OSR D&D-ish style. So I wanted to get away from that and do something like wholly original and be like, hey, this is an idea. I mean, obviously it's not wholly original, it's Pokemon with 0 numbers filed off. It's Pokemon in Final Fantasy, but I hope you get the gist of where I'm going with that. If that is a game I may just work on my own back, never to release, just keep it as like a mini thing. I don't know. Treat it more as a like one of the example settings in the Storypath Ultra manual, core manual, rather than it being its own game line. Or I might pitch it at some future date. Who knows? But for now, I had that idea, and I was like, why limit myself to just one? Why not 2 of the paths be related to something external to the character? And then that was like, well, how would that narratively represent itself? Like, you have 2 entities working together, whereas the obvious outcome of that, oh, hey, look, it's Pokemon. So yeah, that's why. It also means that you have some flexibility in your character sheet, because you could get different Christamon, which changes your attributes and your in-game abilities. which I thought would be a cool twist. It does, of course, require a slightly more complex character sheet, but here we are. And some bookkeeping in terms of like player administration. But at the same time, you get 3. You get 3 Christamon. That's it. You don't get 6. You get 3. So you have 3 different potential like loadouts for your character, if you will. I thought that was a balance between thematic coolness, but also keeping the headache down of bookkeeping. Anyway, I just went off on a whole tangent explaining that decision and where that came from. I do apologize. I don't know if anyone is going to really like the game design aspect of this. I do, personally. That's why I liked Eddie's Buried Bones book for Bugmire. I thought it was really cool to get that insight. But I don't know how many people are here for insights like that. So apologies if you're not here for that. So, yes, so there's that. The PCs will travel the world, uncovering secrets hidden by flooding, desertification, and other natural disasters. And slowly help their chosen communities recover after recover and find their place in the new world. Basic setting idea being part of this will revolve around the development of new, environmentally friendly, crystal-based technologies, and dealing with monstrous threats that arise from the ashes of the old world, because it's a JRPG and you capitalize things ominously. However, there is scope within the ideas and conceits of the game for alternative styles of play inspired by derived from inspirational media, such as the PCs traveling a more recovered world, proving themselves in a formal tournament, a formal Christamon tournament, let's say. Tournament structure, or founding a settlement of their own and embarking on a West March style of game. Yes, I've been overthinking this. How can you tell? So, genre, a fantasy game where the PCs travel the world, uncovering secrets hidden by flooding, desertification. I knew that was a real word that I misspelled. And other natural disasters, so help chosen communities recover and find their place in the new world. There's your hope, recovering, post-climate collapse, etc. Gameplay, I've touched briefly on the fact it's Storypath Ultra and the working together to overcome obstacles. using a combination of their abilities. So that's the main gameplay hook, is that you can swap out your paths for different Christamon. Mechanics, obviously Storypath Ultra, and the basic setting has been described. There we are, that's the product. And then the blog, sorry, I may need to cover the webcam momentarily in a short while. Blog post then goes into like full business plan questions. A lot of those will not be applicable if you are submitting this for approval for the third-party license, but we'll go through them anyway. And just because it's good advice, the part that a lot of pitchers miss is the business plan. Just saying Onyx Path will make a great game that everyone will enjoy tells us nothing. In the end, you want to answer the question, why should Onyx Path make this game? However, the question here, of course, is why should Onyx Path let me make this game, or let you make your game? Thanks, Ari. I spent half an hour on it, and I think it worked. Oh, right, yeah, I need to do at the end of the episode. Can someone remind me to do credits for the font and background texture? I'm not obligated to. I've the background texture is available through content license anyway, and I have the commercial license for the credit, but I like for the font, but I like just throwing those out where I can. Yeah, so why should Onyx Path let you make your game? And also, you know, the prompts that Eddie provided in the blog post are just useful to consider. Like, if you genuinely want to make this game because you are excited for it and you think that there is a market for it, great. But is it just going to be the core book, or is there different ways you could take it? Obviously, with the conceit here, I've got here like a monster manual, a Christamon manual, if you will, a Christamon Dex, a Mondex. I don't know. You know, it's a Pokedex. It's just a book of Christamon, pre-made, that players can choose from. It is something that could be made. New regions of the world for the PCs to visit. Obviously, like, I'm not going to detail the whole globe in the main book. Perhaps a book on doing the like Pokemon style travel from gym to gym to fight to meet and beat the elite, if you will. That could get its own book where you detail a whole new region dedicated to that and a new time period, or the West March style thing. You know, you could have a book on here's a community, here's some community, here's loads of community building aspects that you could build upon. Here are the natural hazards that players could find. Here are some ideas to get you started. Here are some allies and things that you could throw in. Here are problems that they could encounter. There's definitely more than just the core book to this, and if you're making a game, there's probably going to be more than just one book you can make out of it, but you need to get that foundation first before deciding, no, I'll go off on this tangent, I'll go off on this tangent, because you need the product to be sustainable before you start adding to it. And I would assume if you're pursuing the third-party license, it's because you want to make a product. I'm going to hydrate. So, a lot of the questions aren't really applicable, like how complete is it, who will own the IP, will Onyx Path have exclusivity, what sort of payments, royalties, etc. In fact, none of them are terribly applicable, but, you know, there's, as I've mentioned, there's stuff that can be addressed. Christamon can be further developed by could be further developed by looking at its unique selling points. It's USPs, chat. I mentioned USPs. Hell yeah, I got 35 minutes and 3 seconds-ish into the recording before mentioning USPs. Or USP, technically. Okay, unique selling point, the modular... How the modular path system is implemented. How the modular path system is implemented to represent the symbiotic, let's just say the relationship between character and Christamon. A book of pre-made Christamon. Options, perhaps including new elemental affinities not covered in the core book. Would be an obvious supplement. What else did I talk about? Additional supplements could further build on the different gameplay styles by adding new geographical regions, time periods, and antagonist design tools. Geographical regions, time periods, antagonist design. Oh, I cannot type. Antagonist design options and GM advice. Let's go further. GM advice and story tracks to facilitate them. The different, I guess, campaign options. Because I'm also thinking, you could have one focused on the core conceit of the game, which is more like JRPG-ish, where you have like, hey, this is how the core book, like this is the advice given in the core book, but here are now more monster options. Here are more settlements. Here are more. I don't know, conditions, area, field qualities, that kind of thing. I don't think many of these would be... How much of the SPU system do you think you can reprint in the book? I have no idea. There's no information on that, but I would assume all of it, because you're licensing it. So I guess that does actually raise a good point. The assumption I have made... Obviously, it's an assumption, it might be wrong, is that it's going to be similar to the OGL or the ORC if you follow modern stuff, the Open Game License or the Open Resource Contract, whatever it is, where you can reprint whatever mechanics you want, as long as it's not, the old word is product identity. So as long as it's not trademarked, I guess is the way to put it. Obviously SPU's trademarked, but here we are. Yeah, so you can. I'm assuming that you can print whatever mechanics you want, however much of the system as you need for your game, but with the caveat that the whole thing does have to be approved by Onyx Path, and there will be, things that you have to abide by. Again, the license isn't out yet. Don't currently know what they are, which is why it seems silly to start working on the manuscript. Did I... where did I put the manual? Did I may have only downloaded it to my phone. Okay, well that's annoying. But in the core manual, there is a section of like, this is what a story. This is always going to be the same in a Storypath Ultra game. This is sometimes going to change, and I would assume that you have to abide by that at bare minimum. Like, if in the core manual it says this is always in the Storypath Ultra game, you can't change that. That is immutable. That is a core part of the rule set, and the license will probably not allow you to go beyond it. Beyond that, who knows? We're all in the dark. We're all still waiting for that license to be released. But just thinking about it sensibly, if this is a third-party license to use the system, there's going to have to be provision for the system to be in the book, because as far as I'm aware, there is no free version of Storypath Ultra. As far as I know, you have to buy the core manual if you want access to the system. So you can't even say, this book requires this SRD to use, right? And I don't think Onyx Path are going to go down the, you have to buy the core manual as well as a different book to play the game. I mean, some companies absolutely would, but I don't think Onyx Path will. Obviously, if that changes down the line, I will have egg on my face. Which is why this pitch isn't going anywhere until the license has come out, so I can check it for, anything. And when the license does come out, I will do an episode looking at it and my understanding of what it means you can and cannot do. Just because that's probably a useful resource for everyone involved. Or a section of the episode, or something. Anyway, further development of the product, core book. I mean, obviously campaign, pre-written campaigns could be a thing as well. But obviously, I don't know if you've noticed, chat. I don't know how many of you watch my show. I have the YouTube view count numbers. It's not great. But there's a lot of effort goes into writing campaigns and adventures. Like, a lot of effort. More than I think some people think initially realize. So if you're committing to writing a campaign or an adventure, one, my hat goes off to you. I know that pain. But two, you have to be sure that you're going to get you're going to get out of it what you want out of it. It doesn't have to be money. It could just be, people having fun with it. But it is a lot of work, and probably not something you want to do for a game that no one buys. That said, you probably should have one in the book. Market. There are, I know there are some. Change your adventure writing style to more like writing a sandbox. Hey, if that works for you, go for it. I know obviously some people really prefer sandbox adventures anyway to more formalized adventures. Obviously, it's a lot easier to write a bunch of story seeds and hooks and scatter them throughout a world and be like, hey, this is an area you could find this, than what I did for the last season of the show, for example. Which I will address the fact that I have not yet started editing that adventure, but it's on the list, I promise. For the less than 10 of you out there interested in Rise of the Iron Tyrant. Here are 3 locations if you want to interact them. Here are a few things you can do. Yeah, exactly. It's a lot. I mean, it's a lot faster for one, and it's definitely more my style when it comes to GMing. But obviously, some people don't get on with it, so and that's fine. Not everything works for everyone, nor should it. Having a variety of resources out there is never a bad thing. There are some Pokemon-style TTRPGs out there. With more on the way. But they seem to focus more on the monsters and the journey you go on with them. Than obviously I've not read every Pokemon style RPG out there. Working together to help communities recover from natural disasters. Or prevent wandering monsters. From being a natural disaster. This puts Christamon in a relatively small market. Let's rephrase that. Up against a relatively small pool of competitors. I'm not going to write this down in the pitch because you should never do this, but, you know, like, it's a small pool of competitors because most people... It's a niche interest in a niche hobby. I'll admit it. And then, obviously, you know, there are unofficial free Pokemon RPGs out there. So why would you play this over those? But, you know, you don't have to admit that when you're trying to pitch a product. Vying for the attention. Anyone looking for a less tactical game that focuses on relationships and being able to get the most out of your partner. I'll just say monster. Let's just say Christamon. Or equivalent. So the market section in the blog post, by the way, is, you know, who's the target audience? Are there competing products? What is this product's competitive advantage? Why should they make this game now? Obviously, those don't necessarily need answering, but having an awareness of the market you're releasing your game into obviously will help you to set expectations regarding the game. Licensing the game is relatively low risk for Onyx Path, obviously, because they're not putting any money into it. The rules are already written. But, you know, it might be useful to have... it will be useful to have that information because you'll know what other people are doing, how they're doing it. Obviously, you may not be able to buy all the games that you're competing against, because that gets expensive very quickly. But knowing about them and then looking up reviews and seeing how they do things can always be useful. Also means that you can look at how they're doing it and go, not like that, like this. That focuses on relationships, community building, and being able to get the most out of your Christamon or equivalent. Feel that way, you'll likely get a lot of purchase of a licensed RPG from an existing property. Those games tend to be novelties instead of games you play for years. Exactly. And a lot of them also, I'm not naming names here, but a lot of them do require you to know about the setting already. Because they'll go off into capitalized proper noun territory very quickly. And then you just like, well, I just wanted to play a cool game with my friends, but I didn't want to read all of these books beforehand. Depending on the gameplay preference, the audience for this game would likely be I'm just gonna best termed millennial. Or younger. Not that millennial, Gen X, etc. are really really any good as categories, as demographic categories, but it conveys the vibe. So target audience is mentioned, competing products and their strengths have been mentioned. Yep, I think that's kind of it. That's all I really had to talk about today, which was good because it's about an hour. I'm getting. So I've mentioned this a couple of times on the show already. I'll probably mention it again, but I'm burned out. I'm slowly recovering, but hey, it turns out if you don't take time off to recover from burnout, it takes a lot longer than you'd expect. And I'm also probably autistic, which is making it all so much worse. So I'm just having to be really careful with my mental energy and my ability to, because if I do this for too long, my brain will just fill with fog and I will be unable to do anything for the rest of the day. I will just shut down. And that's not ideal, I'll be honest with you. So we've got the hook. Pokemon style JRPG vibes set in a post-climate collapse world that is slowly recovering. Product, Christamon champions. Bubs is weak to psychic type damage, unfortunately for them. I am. It's very true. I had a D&D session last night, and this is something just to be aware of, just in general, if you are pursuing like any creative endeavor. Just know your limits. Like, I had a D&D session last night, and like halfway through it, I just felt my brain stop. And I am really concerned about my ability to GM being impacted long-term by this prolonged burnout. But I just don't have the chance to recover for a variety of reasons. I can't just take the time I need off to recover. If I were in employment, I'd get signed off, and just be signed off for like 2 months in the UK. I don't know about employment elsewhere in the world, but that's what my partner had to do, right? But it's not an option for me. Cool, I'm self-employed. Thank you, Awkward GM. I appreciate the support. I'm trying to take it slow where I can and look after myself as much as possible. Hopefully, my ability to GM is not impacted long term by brain issues. Would I be looking to do crowdfunding? Absolutely not. It's completely viable. I just know myself that is too much stress for me. I don't want to go terribly far into the weeds in this, but I am active in the UK tabletop scene and industry side of things. Basically, right now, for me, it's almost impossible for me to do any selling outside of the UK, financial reasons, tariffs in the US, and then the EU laws changed recently that just makes it would be prohibitively expensive for me personally to sell to the EU, and I don't have relationships with artists to be like, hey, I'll pay you to do the art. I don't have the capital to pay for art in advance, so it would all be, hey, this is all entirely dependent on the crowdfunding campaign working. So for this game, no. If, it sells well, perhaps then a crowdfunding campaign for traditionally printed or like an art upgrade is possible. I never say never to these things, but I am in no position to do crowdfunding campaigns right now. The crowdfunding market is too saturated, I'll be honest. It is far too saturated to get eyes onto most projects. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but the research I have done, and that continues to be done by people I talk to regularly, or interact with regularly, let's say, is just that crowdfunding campaigns right now are, particularly for new designers and new properties, are just very risky. Yeah. Some of that may have sounded pre-rehearsed. It's because I'm writing a solo game after my current indie project, and my idea there is if it sells well enough to try to get an art upgrade via crowdfunding for it and get it nicely printed. But that's a far off pie in the sky idea. Just double checking what I've written. What people think of questions and comments, etc. I have capitalized Christamon. There we go. This means that swapping out Christamon will allow for a flexible character sheet, a flexible loadout of edges and tricks, or equivalent. As well as altering the skills and attributes of the character sheet. PCs will travel the world uncovering secrets but hidden by flooding, desertification, other natural disasters. Slowly help their trading community to recover, find their place in the new world. Positives will revolve around the development of new environmentally friendly crystal-based technologies, and dealing with monstrous threats that arise from the ashes of the capitalized old world. However, there is scope within the ideas and conceits of the game for alternative styles of play derived from the inspirational media, such as the PCs travelling a more recovered world, improving themselves in a formal Christamon tournament structure, or founding a settlement of their own and embarking on a West Marches style of game. I think that covers everything I wanted to cover. Christamon could be further developed by looking at its unique selling point, how the modular path system is implemented to represent the relationship between character and Christamon, book of pre-made Christamon options, perhaps including new elemental affinities in the, not found in the core book. Whoops. Would be an obvious supplement. Additional supplements could further build on the different gameplay styles by adding new geographical regions, time periods, antagonist design options, GM advice, and story tracks to facilitate the campaign options. Finally, pre-written campaigns or adventures could be created to support the line on an ongoing basis. Yep, that's all cool there. There are some Pokemon-style TTRPGs out there with more on the way, but they seem to focus more on the monsters and the journey you go on with them than working together to help communities recover from natural disasters or prevent wandering monsters from being a natural. You know what? Let's italicize that for emphasis so that the natural disaster is deliberately repeated. This puts Christamon up against a relatively small pool of competitors vying for the attention of men and looking for a less tactical game that focuses on relationships, community building, and being able to get the most out of your Christamon or equivalent, depending on your gameplay preference. The board is this game. Yes, cool. That says everything I wanted to say in about a side of A4, which is what you should probably be looking for. Obviously, edit as required. For example, I could take this last paragraph out and further build on, like, incorporate the ideas in this paragraph into the business plan section instead. As ever, if you are submitting something and there are guidelines around ideal length, stick to it. If you go over, it will look poor. It will reflect badly on you, and if you don't include all of the information they're looking for, obviously it reflects badly on you the other way. So next time, theoretically 2 weeks from now, we'll go over the outline and kind of what I hope to include in the book. Again, this is not a guaranteed thing. Once the license is out there and the process is established, I will have to follow it. Just because I'm streaming on their Twitch channel does not mean Onyx Path have given this project their approval ahead of time. They have not. I did get their approval to do this project, to work on the third-party stuff before the official release of it. That's covered, but they didn't give me any more information than you have. Understandable. I never expected any more information than was already out there and publicly available. So yes, next time we'll probably work on the outline section, and then, as I said, once the license is out there, I'll take the time to read it and try to formulate my understanding of it and try to convey that to you, the audience, who hopefully watch this and enjoy it. Yes, so credits. I meant to do this at the start of the episode, but obviously new overlay. The Storypath Ultra logo is from Onyx Path Publishing themselves. Obviously, where else would that come from? The background is from Pixabay and is just freely available for use under the Pixabay content license. Pixabay is a stock image website. Technically, you can filter by images created by or with the assistance of generative AI, but that's all, as far as I can tell, user-based declarations, so you do have to be careful. Everything I use from there, as far as I can tell, is 100% human-made. And the font that I have chosen is Hand of Gamer Dev Dan from Checkered Ink. If you are a font fiend like myself, Checkered Ink have a bundle available on their itch.io page and from their website. It's just every font they've ever released with a commercial license. It's very expensive, but sometimes it goes on sale for $20, and I highly recommend it. Those are the credits. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate your effort on this. Oh, no worries, Awkward Gem. It was... I just wanted something to celebrate nearly 100 episodes of the show, and they on Onyx Path were kind enough to let me do it. I will, as I said, I'll do this as long as I can, and then if I do get approval at the end of the process to write the dang thing, I may not do it all on stream, but I will try to document the writing process for, like, each chapter at the very least. Document some of the writing process for some of each chapter, just to keep things going. I have also ideas about things, but I don't want to speak those ideas aloud, lest I curse them to wither before they are truly grown. But I firmly believe in the power of video content creation. No, I believe in video marketing and the fact that, I can read a contract and understand it. Not everyone can. So if I can remove another barrier from people releasing content, material, games of their own creation, then I will do my level best to do so, because I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this before on the show, but I don't believe in holding knowledge back. Knowledge should be shared and given freely with no expectation of reciprocity. And that's the philosophy that I founded this show on. And it's worked so far, and Onyx Path seemed to support it, so here we are. I think that's everything. So, reminder that the best place to go for Monday meeting... the best place to go for information on Onyx Path Publishing and what they're up to is the Monday meeting notes. Currently, the crowdfunding campaign du jour is not Exalted Essence, is it? I don't know what the command is. Is Lair of the Rat Kings on backer kit. That's nearly finished. It's a few days over. Few days to go. It is completely funded, so if you back it, you will get the product at the end of it. That is a look at the underneath subterranean realm beneath the realms of Pugmire, and includes information on psionic characters, rodents, more information on the Cult of Labotor, everyone's favorite crazy scientists, mad scientists, and all of the bizarre monsters and things that you can find in the underneath. I do have words in that book. I did the monster design. You're welcome. Well, I converted the monsters. Those monsters which are conversions, I converted. Full props to the original designers, and then I also got to add some original monsters into the mix. And those particularly, as I've said before, I'll say again, I think are some of my best monster design work. On sale, currently on sale on DriveThruRPG, there's a 50% off Vampire the Requiem sale on official and community content. And this Wednesday's release is Tangled Webs, a collection of liminalities for Curseborn. Last Wednesday's release was Alchemicals Forged by the Machine God. The next show on the channel is tomorrow at 7 PM Eastern, Curseborn at Cursed in Boston. I believe that's with Awkward GM, who has been keeping me company today. Thursday, 4 PM, Guiding the Path with Tom Moore. Really phenomenal story to guide, and you can always learn something by listening to Tom. And Monday, 9 PM Eastern, Trinity Continuum Adventure Air Circus, an actual play of Trinity Continuum Adventure. If you have enjoyed the show, please do let us know. Obviously, there's always room for improvement. If you missed out on any of it and you want to watch without having to wait, if you're a subscriber to the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/theonyxpath, you can watch the video as soon as it's finished. If you're not a subscriber, you will have to wait a week, at which point you'll be able to watch it here on the Twitch channel, or you can watch it on my channel, youtube.com/@ComradeBubbles, where it will be in a handy dandy playlist with everything from this season. And also you can watch past seasons of the show. If you have an Amazon Prime account, you can link that to your Twitch account for a Prime Gaming account, which gives you one free subscription every 30 days. You gain the same benefits of a Tier 1 subscription. The channel gains the same benefits of a Tier 1 subscription. You just pay nothing for it. Well, I mean, you pay the Amazon Prime account, Prime fee, but you get what I'm saying. If I haven't put you off yet, I do stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/ComradeBubbles. Ordinarily, I would stream there after this show, but I'm feeling the brain fog already, so I'm probably going to stop streaming. I just do things off stream today. I do co-working streams on a near daily basis during the week. We do some co-working for a few hours and then play a video game. Or I just co-work until the end of the stream. And then currently on Fridays, I play a video game for the entire stream. And we would love to have you. I can offer you a Pomodoro timer, I can offer you lo-fi, and bizarrely I can offer you plastic ducks. They seem to go down well if you're looking for some co-working, if you're looking for a co-working space. I think that's it. So I should be back in 2 weeks, where we'll go over the outline. Maybe the license will be out by then, who knows. But I'll be back in 2 weeks to go over the outline. I may have tweaked this pitch slightly before then, but you might see it. I might mention it. I might not. Depends how I'm feeling. Hopefully I will be back, however, in 2 weeks. Hopefully you are interested enough to return in 2 weeks on the 25th of August. But until next time, and as is my want, stay safe, stay healthy, stay wholesome. Much love to you all. Goodbye.